By the late 90s, illegal highway racing and JDM culture became a big phenomenon in Japan, years before Fast and Furious was even a thing. Around that time, a company called Genki, which had developed some MotoGP games for the Super Nintendo, saw a great opportunity in this trend. So in 1994, they released Shutoko Battle 94 for the SNES. Several years later in 1999, Sega launched a new console called the Dreamcast, and they just so happened to need a release title. Thus, Genki became one of the developers to be involved. So Shutoko Battle, or otherwise known as Tokyo Xtreme Racer in the US and Tokyo Highway Challenge in Europe, continued as a series in the new Sega console. We now know the Dreamcast didn't sell that well, but does that mean games released with it are also bad? Did Tokyo Xtreme Racer capture the essence of Japan's niche culture of street racing? Is it better than the other games that were released way after and were inspired by the same culture and vibe? Well, that's what we're going to check out today. First off, let's talk about the UI, because this is certainly peculiar. It's weird how simplistic the UI was back then, especially compared to the simplistic modern UI made nowadays. It's simplistic yet functional enough, so no problem there. The game has 3 modes, but the main one we're going to focus on is the quest mode. In the so-called quest mode, we have a career mode of sorts. You start off with 25,000 CP, which can be used to purchase one of 25 cars. At first glance, these cars may look like they are licensed, but this game has no license on cars whatsoever. Thanks to the weird way licensing works back then in Japan, they could essentially recreate the shape of the car as long as there are no mentions of the brand name. So basically you can tell that this is supposed to be a Honda NSX without the badge or the proper name on it. Unlike most racers at the time, in this game you don't just pick a circuit and start individual races. The game is set in the Tokyo highways, and you cruise around until you find another racer, and then you can blink your headlights to challenge them to a race, similar to what we are used to seeing in the Midnight Club games. This is basically the entire gameplay loop. Challenge a racer, accumulate currency, upgrade a car, challenge stronger racers, and repeat. If you've played Shutoko Revival in Assetto Corsa, you will see a striking similarity too in the general feeling of the game. There are no start and stopping points, so each race is very different. Sometimes though, it can be very RNG dependent, especially with the stronger opponents. Speaking of which, traffic in this game can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. On one hand, they are exploitable to completely beat a super strong opponent, then on the other hand, they kill you instantly. And there's no such things as laps and time trials, and here you kinda have what can be compared to a health bar of sorts. If you overtake your opponent, the health bar starts to drop. If you increase the distance between both of you, the health of the other racer drops faster. If you've played Need for Speed Undercover, this is basically the highway battles with a health bar included as well. This game contains a total of 141 rivals, with each having their own unique backstories. Like for example, this girl who started taking pictures of others racing, and eventually it motivated her to try street racing herself. Some are trying to quit street racing, but they love it so much that they just cannot quit. A few have sadly lost their loved ones because of it and want to carry on their legacy. It's short bios about the rivals, but it does make you care for them a bit even if you race against them just once. For those that cared about these little things, it adds a whole lot of details into the drivers and makes the world feel alive. And all of the rivals are divided into about 20 clubs or crews, and if you defeat all the rivals in one club, a boss fight appears, and they actually come to challenge you for a race instead of you challenging them. You can't buy boss cars once you've beaten them afterwards. If you beat all the racers and gangs, you will become the king of the highways, the ultimate import racer. A very simplistic yet solid enough of a story for a racing game. The amount of money that you win is enough to make you tune your car or buy a new one and keep up with the rising difficulty of the game. But the game is not very forgiving at the start. One small mistake, hitting the traffic, and the race is over. The opponents are challenging at the beginning with insane rubber banding, which truly doesn't help. Seriously man, it's something absurd. Look at that speed. Yo, what the f***, man? What the hell? You will often find yourself cruising around for quite some time until you find a fair opponent. because you obviously won't stand a chance racing against the Supra in a Civic. And sometimes you will even have to return to the menu and reload the game mode to make new opponents spawn. Beating all the main bosses and becoming king isn't exactly the end though, as the game would spawn in new opponents and still allows you to continue dominating the highway in a sort of post-endgame state. But let's talk about the upgrades now. The tuning system is very basic, but it serves its purpose well. You can buy a new engine, suspension, clutch, transmission, and all of that. Everything is separated by stages, allowing you to constantly improve your vehicle anytime you wish to. The visual modifications are also very interesting with a great variety. It gives strong late 90s and early 2000s tuner culture vibes, with some quirky spoilers and weird looking bumpers. The handling is not that arcadey as you might expect for a game like this. The cars feel heavy and you won't be able to just slide around the corners and do some crazy drifting as you probably are used to in the Need for Speed series, for example. The physics are way too understeery. You can try to change it in the car settings to make the brakes more responsive and the steering more sharp, but it didn't make a substantial difference for me. Also, there is no damage system, and if you crash into a wall, the vehicle will kinda bounce, but that can be used at your favor if you forgot to brake in some corner. The car will almost redirect you in the right position. The map is not exactly huge, considering this is the only circuit you will race in the entire game. It will probably take you 5 minutes or so to completely drive around it. But at the same time, as you progress in the game, you will get very used to the track. You will get to know every single corner and how to perfectly drive in them. The minimap here is super simple, and the dots represent you and the opponents, with different colors to determine whether you've beaten them or have been beaten by them, and also shows the ones that haven't been challenged yet. And now talking about the other modes. We have Quick Race, but it isn't exactly what you're probably thinking by the name. Here we go in a succession of races, 100 in total, without the cruising around that we saw in Quest mode. But you can use any car you like and your health bar won't regenerate at the end of each race, so it is a game freshener challenge to spice things up. It's a lot closer to something like a boss rush or any similar rush modes, and if you complete it, you can buy the Devil Z in Quest mode. And the third mode consists of a simple multiplayer co-op battle. And also the soundtrack is amazing. Have a listen to it for yourself. Tokyo Xtreme Racer predates Fast and Furious by 2 years and basically started a trend that changed the racing game genre. The way the gameplay is structured turns into a total break from the norm. It can get a little monotone over time, having only one circuit, but the cars and the charm and the overall aesthetics of the game presents a delightful experience in general. It's certainly interesting seeing how this whole highway racer genre would develop in the later years with some of the later TXR games and Wangan Midnight Maximum Tune for the arcades. And despite the lack of these highway racers in recent years, the appearance of many mods and indie titles trying to recapture the magic these games brought certainly proves that this niche section in the racing genre has its fair share of dedicated fans. This game won't bombard you with a whole lot of content, but if you're looking for a unique experience, this is definitely for you. And that is another video wrapped up. What did you guys think of Tokyo Xtreme Racer? Do you want to see more of them? Let me know your opinions down in the comments below. And while you're there, drop a like and a sub to the channel. It does truly help out a lot. I'll see you amazing lads next week with another video. Take care.